Hello and welcome to my presentation. My name is Kimberly Martin and this is Nepalese Geographical Shift to the USA. Nepal comprises of a rich culture and tradition. With the earthquake of 2015, many were devastated, thus leading to the geographical movement westward. Assimilation into the US for the Nepalese refugees has come with its own challenges. Yet the Nepali people have created a community of support while keeping their traditions and ethnic identity intact. Nepal is situated between India and China. Its capital is Kathmandu. The current population is 29,212,417 people. The ethnic demographic for Nepal is very diverse, with 125 ethnic groups ranging by altitude, as shown on the graph. There are 75 districts within Nepal and many languages and dialects spoken. In 2015, there was a major earthquake that devastated the country. Many historical cultural heritage sites were destroyed, as shown here in this before and after. YouTube has unbelievable videos of the earthquake and its devastation. This chart shows how vast the earthquake was and the destructive power it had. The earthquake hit at 11:56 local time, AM. It was about 76 kilometers northwest of Kathmandu and the largest earthquake in 80 years. There were over 300 more aftershocks with a magnitude of 4.0 and greater. 4 aftershocks had a magnitude of 6.0. Over 8,000 people died. In addition, 22,300 people were injured. In total, 8 million people were affected. That's almost 1/3 of Nepal's population that had been impacted. 31 of the 75 districts were affected. 14 were declared crisis in order to prioritize rescue and relief operations. Over 500,000 houses were destroyed. Some worst hit areas had the entire settlement swept away by earthquakes triggered landslides and avalanches. Government buildings, heritage sites, schools, health posts, rural roads, bridges, water supply systems, agricultural land, and many more things were severely compromised. Early estimates suggest that an additional 3% of the population had been pushed into poverty as a direct result of the earthquake. That translates into as many as 1 million more poor people. The Post-Disaster Need Assessment, known as PDNA, released 6 weeks after the disaster an approximation of the overall damages, losses, and needs. The PDNA estimated that damages totaling of $5.15 billion were needed. Recovery needs were $6.7 billion. That's 1/3 of Nepal's economy. The most heavily impacted sector was housing, totaling 3/5 of the damages and 1/2 of the needs. The PDNA came up with a $500 million Nepal earthquake support package on behalf of the World Bank. Nearly 500,000 houses were destroyed, and more than 250,000 were partially damaged. It was estimated that $300 million was needed in order to fix damages and losses, especially in the education sector and public school infrastructure. This map was provided by Google Earth and NASA, showing the devastation. This is a 25 by 31 mile damage proxy map, or a DPM, showing the region around Kathmandu. This is a process by Advanced Rapid Imaging and Analysis performed by the ARIA team at JPL and Caltech using X-band interferometric synthetic aperture radar data from ASI's and Cosmos SkyMed satellite constellation. They used a prototype algorithm to rapidly detect surfaces change caused by natural or human-produced damage. The color variation, yellow to red, indicated more significant ground surface change. The maps are dated from November 24th, 2014 to April 29th, 2015. Each pixel is approximately 100 feet across. The buildings are shown by red and purple dots. Thousands slept in tents following the earthquake, as houses were destroyed, unsafe, and aftershocks were occurring. Tent cities popped up around the city of Kathmandu across the affected areas, both in urban and rural locations. Aid from the Nepal government was slow or non-existent. Even a year later, thousands of people remained living in temporary homes made from sheet metal, bamboo, wood, and a variety of materials. At least 6 earthquake survivors were reported to have died from the cold due to the inadequate shelter. Majority of the refugees that have resettled in the U.S. are Bhutanese refugees with Nepali origins that have been kicked out of Bhutan, brutalized and terrorized by their government, forcing them to leave and reside in camps for generations within the eastern part of Nepal. The graph on the right, the pie chart on the right, is a representation of their resettlement. The history of these Bhutan Nepal origin-speaking people began as far back as the 1890s. Nepali-speaking people are brought by government contractors to settle in southern Bhutan and clear the forest and establish rich terraced farmlands, providing the main food supplies for the country. Beginning in the early 1990s, Nepali-speaking Bhutanese were repressed in southern Bhutan, with their citizenship cards being confiscated by government officials. Mass exodus is seen after many were forced to sign a voluntary migration form, and tens of thousands fled to India, who were then moved to Nepal. By 2008, with no progress in talks between Bhutan and Nepal, thousands still remained in eastern Nepal in makeshift camps. Resettlement begins, mostly in the U.S., that was managed by International Organization for Migrations, or the IOM. These Bhutanese people of Nepalese origin, also known as Lahat Shampas, were quick to help those most in need following the 2015 earthquake. Further research into this resettlement of Nepali people into the U.S. has produced little numbers and evidence that many Nepalis were moved to the U.S. due to the earthquake. I have found that many Nepali refugees in the U.S. are these Bhutanese people of Nepalese origin, or also known as Lahat Shampas. Immigration transition. From immigrant to settler in a new homeland presents unique problems and challenges for newcomers. Some concerns are changing and becoming a recognized citizen, navigating the mixing of two cultures, feelings of being a perpetual outsider, retaining cultural practices and language, and forming a new identity. As quoted by my source, Nath 2009, complex transitional flows of media images and messages perhaps create the greatest disjuncture for diasporic populations. Since the electronic media in particular, the politics of desire and imagination are always in contest with the politics of heritage and nostalgia. They constantly find their own established ideas of what their homeland was when they left and how it has grown during their time away, being challenged by the new image that they see when they visit or through the media. They thus have to integrate this new image into their minds and work towards accepting the changes. But the greatest challenge they face is perhaps trying to find a niche in the old homeland that they have left behind. The end. Thank you for viewing my presentation.